1, 2, 3, 4.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. It is such a pleasure to be with you. I am your host, Lucas Ham Swisher, the Brazilian mountaineer. With me, to my left, Patrick Novosel, the judge, jury, and executioner of fake news and spoilers. You can say hi if you want to.
Oh, hey, hello.
And also
this
with
is
me,
different, sorry.
Yeah, I know, totally mixing things up. I said the names first, and then I said the taglines. And then also with me, the wonderful 101 from Wisconsin, Lem Fillyaw. It is so good to have you, brother.
It's so good to be here. I'm
Yes.
back, y'all.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You
Like
are our first
60 episodes?
return guest. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh, it's so good to see you, man, and hear you, because
good to be
not everyone
seen.
can see you. But so we are doing a little bonus episode, and it is very much a mix between improv, real life, a time to pour out our hearts, frustrations, because things are happening, and we want to talk about it. We want to make sure that we are contributing to it. We are very much so 100% all on board in protesting racism and spreading change through conversation and love. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what has been going on, what is going on, and where we want to go from here. And so to kind of start things out, I thought it would be appropriate if we all just kind of gave everybody who's listening an idea of what life is like, what life has been like over the past week and a half for each of us, because we all live in different necks of the woods, if I could say it like that. We live in all different areas of the world. Patrick's in Cincinnati, Lem's in somewhere in Wisconsin, I forget. I know there's cheese there.
No, that's the town somewhere in.
Somewhere in. Oh, fantastic. Perfect. I nailed it. I had no idea. And then I'm in Brazil. And last week, we were all shocked to see a man who went by the name of George Floyd be senselessly murdered by a police officer, someone that we thought should be protecting others. And from there, you know, we've all seen the news, we've all seen social media, and from there, protests, riots, political heads, and media talking back and forth. It's just been bedlam. Buildings burning down, cities, all 50 states participating, so many countries participating, and it's all to fight against racism, prejudice, people's lives not being valued for what they should be. And so, guys, kind of share with me over this past week and a half, kind of where life has taken you in connection to this, because there's no way to avoid it. And why don't we start with Lem, our special guest?
Well,
Age before beauty, after all.
I see what you did. All right, so I work for a nonprofit, faith-based nonprofit that instills life and hope in youth. And since March, I've been working from home. And because of my part-time job, which takes me into, or at least around other people's homes around the state, I've continued to work from home because myself and others have one form or another of immune something or others.
Right.
So I've opted to still work from home, and it's been really, really good. So I work in the basement, and lately I've been getting outside into the sun.
That's good.
And so
get that vitamin D.
Oh yeah, gotta get that vitamin D. So I've been getting outside. Before I actually went outside, I've been seeing the world through Twitter. Yeah. And it's been rough on your boy.
I hear you there.
Mainly because I'm an empath. I feel other people's pain. And when I can relate to it, it's even worse. You know, and I really haven't been hanging out outside since before March, and it's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I wasn't outside.
Right. No, there was not much reason to go outside back in February and January.
So I honestly have felt, my countenance fall some. I'm still probably bouncing off the walls and more joyous than a lot of people. But I can tell the difference. And especially now, just seeing people's pain. And so it's been rough. And then having conversations with family and friends. And I've got people that are all over, like most of us, we have people that are all over the spectrum of what should happen, what shouldn't happen, why did this happen, why didn't this happen, they did this, he did that. And it's tearing me apart. In short, it's tearing me apart because I care about all the people that I'm hearing this from. So.
Yep. Yeah. How about you, Patrick?
Well, it was last Tuesday. I heard about George Floyd and I immediately was like, seriously again? Like, are we seriously gonna have another police officer kill again, especially another black man? Like, this is ridiculous. And so I had like a mild anger at the time, but for me, I did not foresee what was going to transpire over the next couple weeks. And as the initial videos come out, like Lem, you said, like you're living on Twitter. Like, yeah, like I am living on Twitter. That's where I get all my news. And my feed is usually video games or sports. And it was not that anymore. And for me, like, I don't like watching those videos because it hurts. Like I feel that, and I'm like, I don't like feeling that way. Like you, Lem, like I love to be happy. I love to be good. I love to see the good in people and try to bring the room up, kind of thing. But watching those types of videos just hurts me and it brings me down. So I at first was, I had just a feeling like this is seriously, again, I don't want to think about this. And then it just got big, and everybody in Minnesota and across the nation, across the world, you see protests that are happening in New Zealand, in Germany, and England, and you see all this. You're like, this is something that is bringing so many people together, and I cannot believe how much this is bringing people together. It is on the other side, you see where people's opinions are coming out, and you kind of realize that I don't know if it's a 100% racist person, or if someone who was brought up a little differently. I've seen these. I see protests. I'm seeing riots. And with Twitter, I'm seeing all of what the police officers are doing, what the rioters and protesters are doing, and it's just some of it is really good. When you see when I saw the police officers who are crying with the protesters, or you see a police officer lay down their badge and say, hey, do not want to be a part of this anymore. I want to be a part of change. And it's, there's good things and there's bad things. And I was telling Lucas a couple days ago, I think when we recorded, that it's been keeping me up at night more than I thought it would. There was 2 straight nights I didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. because I was reading and learning and educating myself about all this, and it has hit me harder than anything I can't even remember. And it's something where Lucas had reached out and says, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, I'm in, 100% in. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I wrote you, Patrick, it was like I was ready to burst.
Yes.
When I saw, like you mentioned, and seeing the video with George Floyd, I remember where I was. I was sitting at a chair in my living room and just kind of just looking over Twitter and just what's going on today. I feel like I saw it pretty soon. Like I saw it before the protesting and rioting even started. Like it was as soon as it hit social media, it came across my newsfeed, and I watched it in horror. Like I just, and again, like you said, Patrick, I was like, is this really like I don't understand why at this point how everyone can't be more aware, and people, especially in power and authority, can't be more aware of what they're doing. And, I know that, you can twist anything, but there's just no twisting this from a good perspective. It's all bad, and how it all went down. And I watched it, and it was like I think the original was like one of the main videos that went around was like 3 or 4 minutes. And in reality, it was like double and a half that, how long, the officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck. And, at one point watching the video, I saw one of the police officers who was a medical, I think he was a medic also, and he was checking his pulse. And I was like, oh man, tell me he pulls through. And then that's when I started seeing the news that he definitely did not. And, I feel like every few months or every 6 months from Brazil, in the 8 years I've lived here, I keep seeing stuff from the U.S. and I just kind of brace for it. It's like, okay, how are people going to react? You try to pray for the families and pray for the people involved. But like you said, Patrick, just the way the world has reacted on both sides of the spectrum, it's been so extreme. It's been, and my heart has been broken. Like there's been a couple times I remember standing in the kitchen. I was about to wash some dishes, and I was listening to some things, seeing some things, living on Twitter, like you guys mentioned, and I just started to tear up. And it just seeing the pain, not just seeing what people are doing, but kind of like Lem said, like I was having an empath moment where I just felt the heaviness of it all. And I felt it as a human being. I felt it as a Christian from God's perspective, like just seeing people tearing at each other, fighting each other, and just continuing to feed the fire of hatred in some areas. But like you said, Patrick, in other areas, seeing people come together, seeing people, black, white, brown, every color of people just saying we're standing together. And that oneness grow in people. It's inspiring, but it's so scary because we're not coming back from this. Like it's not like the past, crises or past things that have happened where, something bad's happened, a victim of racism is in the news, and then like a month later it's disappeared. There's no going back from this.
I noticed that, like you said, there's all over the world, and some people have made it akin to the 60s, and I'm thinking, this is bigger than what it was in the 60s, because you did not see the spectrum not only of skin tones, but ages of people that are out there and that are aware of going. You didn't see the celebrities in the 60s going, as far as I know anyway, I wasn't around, but from the news feeds and such that I see, you saw the celebrity activists, if you will, but not the celebrities becoming activists. So I think, you're absolutely right, Lucas. There's not coming back from this.
And part of me is, when I first thought of that, I was kind of scared because it's like, wow, what's the next phase that our society, our world is stepping into? But at the same time, I'm like, yes, I don't want to go back. I don't want to be in a position where we're just, it's not that big a deal. it's better now because we're more civilized and we're more of this and we're more of that. No, we're not. People are still people. They still, when they're left to their own devices, will just be selfish and just want to do what they want to do. And it's still a problem, and it shouldn't be. And it's still something that affects us, and there needs to be change, and that people need to not be happy about it. They need to be angry. But man, just everything that's going on. What I really want to transition and talk about a little bit. How much has racism intersected with your guys' lives? Where has it been affected personally? I know, because that plays a lot into how we deal with this, and how we try to combat this or try to process what's going on. Because whether you're someone who's maybe never been susceptible to it, to someone who's lived it from day to day, that's going to play into then how you respond to what's going on right now. Because there's a spectrum of responses we have. I mean, we have everything from peaceful protesting, silence, rioting, government officials like putting their foot down, and some of the ways in which authorities and things, at least from what I've seen on social media, which I know of course can be sometimes a little too much, but at the same time, like, they're really getting strict with these curfews and different things to combat the riots. At the same time, I feel like they're taking out more protesters than rioters in some of their strict ways of handling the curfew. But for you guys personally, what is your personal perspective on this? What is your personal experience? And again, I'm just going to go in the same order. Let's start with you, Lem. Why don't you share a little bit with us?
I'm gonna sound like the old man I am for a second here. Back when I was in second grade. But seriously, back when I was in second grade, that was the first time I remember dealing with any kind of racism. And I was young. I was in a private school, and it's like one of the few years I had ever been in a private school. And this kid that I sat next to, his name was Jack. He said to me, I don't like you. And I said, why not? He said, because you're black. I said, okay. I had plenty of other friends, but that has stuck with me. I'm in my 40s, guys. And I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I've seen it my whole life against me, and the sad thing is I've also seen it against folks of other races, and I hate using that term, other races, because we're all in the human race. We just have different melanin levels. Yeah. So I have people of different melanin levels.
We are all people of different melanin levels. You're right.
Like in my own neighborhood, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, there was my neighborhood, and then you walk a few blocks over is the Jewish neighborhood, and you walk a few blocks over it's the Jamaican neighborhood, and you walk a few blocks over, you got your Italian neighborhoods, and even though we lived together, there were dividing lines.
Right.
And
territories.
Yeah. And the folks in my neighborhood, my territory, if you will, would always talk bad about the people with less melanin in their skin. They're going to keep us down. You got to be careful, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And as we know, because a second grader doesn't come up with that stuff on his own.
Right.
That same conversation was happening elsewhere. And so all throughout life, I've run into people that have issues with somebody's melanin. If you don't like me because I'm loud and obnoxious, and which I am, I get that. I can get behind that, because that's a personality. That's a
It's like a personal preference.
Yeah, personal preference. I get that. But if you don't know me and you judge me on my melanin level, that's like saying, oh, I don't like brown sheep. Or, you know what? They all can make the cotton or wool. Sorry, wool, not cotton. Cotton's from a plant. I'm a smart guy.
Gonna go pick me some sheep.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. All right. But so like, okay.
It's all right. None of us are farmers here, so no one's gonna hold it against us.
No.
Sorry for our farmer listeners
I did
out
say
there.
Brooklyn, New York, right? Brooklyn,
Yeah,
New York.
you did.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of farms in Brooklyn. But when I moved to North Carolina, I had moved there when I was 15 years old, and the year before there were some major race things going on in our school, in our high school. I didn't know about this, so I go in and I'm making friends with everybody. After of course my dark emo phase.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean,
got to go through that.
We've all had it.
Good old hormones.
But I'm making friends with everybody, and I've got people of African descent coming up to me and saying, "Hey, why are you talking to that person?" Like, because they talked to me and we're friends,
Right.
I didn't get it, and I think part of that was because I started when I was in high school in New York, because I was there for freshman year. I started to make friends of all races and all backgrounds and all in all different parts of the country. I remember this one girl that came in. She came in from California, and I was like, "Hang 10, dude," and she was like, "You don't even know what that means." I was like, "Yeah, it means to go surfing. It's when you hang you at the edge of the board." I'm like, "We live on the coast. We also live on a coast here." She was like, "Oh, I didn't think you would know what that meant." And that was another eye-opening piece where it's not just about your skin color, it's about your background. So which leads me to believe today the issue we have is not about color. It's about have the heart that is within that skin.
Amen. For sure.
I'll shut up now.
No, that's not why you're here. If you shut up,
I know. I just feel like I was ranting.
Defeating the purpose. It's all good.
And I didn't even get past high school. I do live in Wisconsin, and I don't live in Milwaukee. I don't live in Madison. I don't live in. That's probably the two that most of your listeners have ever heard of.
Right. Or somewhere. Don't forget
I live in somewhere. I live somewhere in.
Which is where you live. Somewhere in.
Somewhere in. And those two places are very diverse for cultures.
Right.
I don't live in that. And I find that I live in this little bubble. Where I live, there's almost a palatable, visible bubble where things don't break through. Oh, that can't happen here. Nothing is going to happen here. Oh, it's going to be a tornado. We'll have a tornado. Natural things happen here. That doesn't happen here. It happens here. Green Bay. I do live close to Green Bay.
Yeah. There you go.
Green Bay. You see things like that happen because there. Just in the past 20 years, there's been an influx of different ethnic backgrounds that have come into my area. And people weren't used to it. When I first moved here, people thought I was a Green Bay Packer. Because why else would someone else be here, of my persuasion be here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my best friend said, "Dude, you need to milk that." I said, "Yeah, I'm the new kicker."
Yeah.
You need to milk that. I was like, "Nah, man, I can't do that. I can't."
Yep, 4-string kicker. That's me.
And so slowly, I started to see more and more of it, more and more. where, you walk down the street and you're passing somebody and they hold their purse just a little bit closer,
Right.
or, they pull their child closer to them, and granted, maybe it's, they just don't want their kid around a stranger. But because of my experiences through life, I have to think, is it my skin?
Right.
Yeah.
That doubt crosses your mind automatically.
Yeah. And that's something that some folks don't have to deal with. Or maybe they have, if they were in a different situation, they would have to think that. But they've never, because they don't leave the bubble, they don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine that went to South Africa, and she said, we were the only two white people wherever we were. And I said to her, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And so it's just like, it's just like, boom, now that veil has been lifted from that one person. And like, I never thought of that. Ever. And so.
Yeah.
That those are my experiences. And sometimes I never notice it. I've got friends that are very active activists that they can sunburn where I don't.
Yeah.
And they notice it before I do now. They'll notice stuff before I do.
It's interesting. Yeah, I have a feeling it's in part your nature and your faith coming into play. It just gives an extra, you're just so full of love and joy that I think it just gives you that extra cushion to not think that direction. God has given you a glass half full, or maybe just a glass full, even if it is half full, it's full to you.
It's full enough.
That kind of mentality. And so I appreciate that, brother. Patrick, how about you, buddy? What has life brought your way in this realm?
I don't have many experiences with this. I grew up, I went to a public school, and there's all different mixes there. When you look at private schools, it's predominantly white. And you go to public schools, you got all mixes. And so I really never, and then with my upbringing, I really never saw what is it, melanin levels?
Yeah.
I never really saw that. And the only experiences I've had were when I hear someone say something that I don't agree with. And it could be a word, it could be an action, and it always made me feel uneasy. Like, I don't understand why someone would judge a book by its cover. I can't look at a video game cover art and say I don't like that game until I get to know that game. So I never had that. And that's also what, I'm been instilling into my kids as well. I had a conversation with my daughter tonight, because of what has been happening. And I asked her, I was like, do you know what racism is? And she says no. So I was like, well, it's basically when you judge a person by the color of their skin. And she's like, oh, well, I don't do that. And it made me feel good that I am doing a good job as a parent in that respect.
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing that that if I am instilling those values and morals into my kids, then hopefully she will do the same with her kids. And that's the cycle that we need to go towards. It's if you have an upbringing where someone doesn't have that conversation with you, it could be we're gonna continue to perpetuate this cycle, and it's never gonna end. And or that conversation that you missed that you should have had with your kids, that the conversation is not going to continue with that person or that family until the next generation. So you're going to lose that dialogue unless you have, if you choose the right friends, or if you become a part of an organization, whether that is some sort of activist group or if it's a church. There's so many different ways that people can be brought up. But if you don't have that conversation as a parent, as a dad, we're all dads here. And
Yep.
it's my daughter, she's 10, Lucas, your daughter is also 10, correct? So
Yep.
they're young, but if we instill that now, then it's going to be so much easier to have more and more conversations with them going forward. So like I said, I really haven't had many experiences, only because I don't agree with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I got you.
funny. You say having those conversations, and I think that I don't remember having a deep conversation with my kids about it. To be completely honest. But that's because my wife has way less melanin in her skin than I do.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you're a symbol for that.
Right. Although her name means dark skin, so it's so weird.
Oh, really?
So does my wife's name means dark skin.
It's so weird. Our wives have the same name.
No, craziness. And my wife almost has the same name, except it's a D instead of an N.
Yes. We're the Mel husbands.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Mel husbands of Mel.
Yes.
That's true.
Insignias or something?
Yeah, we need to make I think we need to get like a cool jean jacket and then sew a patch on the back. Husbands of Mel. That'd be awesome. And then wear it around each other's wives, and they get really freaked out. They're like, you're not my husband. Get away from me. Perfect. Husbands of Mel. Conversations with Mel's husband. Pat, Lem, and Lucas. Yeah. I also have had, because of this, I've been having conversations with my kids. Fortunately, in the past 8 years, living in Brazil, diversity has not been an issue. I know that there are parts of Brazil that deal with racism. For example, I lived in one town that I lived in was actually the last town to abolish slavery, and to this day they do not celebrate Black Awareness. The Black Awareness Day. And it's never been like a thing where people are like against it, but it's just like this unsaid thing where they just don't do anything about it. And I don't even understand why. But thankfully that's not the norm here in Brazil. My experience in Brazil has been amazing in that respect, because my kids don't see melanin. They don't see color. They don't see anything but a person and their heart. Mm-hmm. We went to the church we probably have really loved the most in the first city we lived in. They were the most mixed church I've ever been a part of. Whites, blacks, Asian, European. They really had every representation except Eskimos. Like, those are the only people that probably aren't in that church. And it's beautiful. There's never been any issue, and it was like, and you know what's funny is the name of the church is Paraíso, which is paradise. And I feel like, that was a glimpse in some way, because they were the most helpful people I've ever known at this church. And race is not an issue. It's just we're brothers and sisters in Christ. And somehow, I don't understand it, because I'm going to be honest, I'm from West Virginia. And while West Virginia seceded to the north and, got away from the South back in the day in the 1800s, most of West Virginia has not gotten past the Civil War in some ways. Like, there are plenty of people who speak about people of color as a separate group, and That has never been a thing that I've connected with. And I don't know why, I should know why. My parents have they've never talked that way. They've never created a dividing line between us and them, or blacks and whites, or, the color of your skin. It's never been an issue. And my parents didn't talk to me about it. In my hometown, there were no Hispanics. There were very few Asians or people of other colors or anything. There were a handful, but and from my experience, nothing ever really happened. Like in terms of like people, I had a kid in my school who was African American in my class, but he was just a part of the group and he was a part of our school. There wasn't any issues, but at the same time, once I left West Virginia and went to college, and I got to finally get cultured, as it were. This is before the age of like the internet and cell phones, when it was really big. Like my hometown was like Hobbiton, where you just you can leave and go out in the world and experience the craziest stuff, and you come back and it's exactly the same. People tell the exact same stories. People look exactly the same and do the same thing they've done for the past 10, 12, 20 years. That's what it was like back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. But once the internet came along, and once everybody got a cell phone, and once people got more connected with the outside world, West Virginia has kind of gotten with the times in many ways. And, I was proud to hear recently that, in various cities in West Virginia, people peacefully protested in a variety of cities, protesting racism and the police brutality and the things that they've been protesting. So I'm very proud to be a West Virginian, but I didn't grow up dealing with that. However, one thing that happened that still is etched in my mind is when I realized that my dad was cool. There are a number of ways in which I realized my dad was cool, but
we all have that moment.
Yeah, we have those moments, right? But this one hit in a way that's connected to what we're talking about tonight. When he got married the second time, my mom passed away when I was 11. He got remarried when he was 12, and he said, "My best friend from college, Dave, is coming to be my best man." He wasn't able to be my best man when I first got married, and so this time around, I want him to be my best man. And in walks Dave, and he was black, and I was, as a 12-year-old, I was like, "That's my dad's best friend." There was no like, "Ooh, this is weird." It was like, "That is cool. That is really cool." And I got to know Dave, and he was like he's like immediately, he's like, "Just call me Uncle Dave." And I called him Uncle Dave, and we laughed, and he stayed around for like a week when he got married, and he's come back to visit from time to time. The other thing that really is etched in my brain is when I was 13 or 14, 13. I'm going to go with 13. It might be 14 though.
Band syndrome coming in.
Yeah, it is. After 20 or so years, it starts to get hazy. When I first put my faith into Christ, the man who prayed with me was a man by the name of Dana Baker, and he was a singer at a college that I went to later on in Mount Vernon, Ohio. And he was just this boisterous, loud, larger-than-life guy that was so hilarious and so special and so sensitive. He prayed with me. He led me to the Lord, and he was African American, and I didn't see it as anything strange or different. He's always been like a big brother to me. And so I feel like God has used like these little moments, though I grew up in a very not culturally sensitive state, at least in the time when I was younger, to now, thankfully being different. But God used those moments to just kind of ease me into being the way he wants us to be. He wanted me to be, to where now, I'm married to a Costa Rican. She's very Hispanic. She was adopted by two very sweet and wonderful Americans that are very much, their melanin is so much more like mine. When we're at a church, immediately people will say, "Oh, is this your father?" I'm like, "Nope." He's my wife's father. And they just kind of look at my wife, who looks like she could be Brazilian from Rio or whatever. And, they'll look at her tan skin, dark hair, and then look at him. And he's like, white as white can be and bald and all these things. And they're like, "That's your dad?" Yep, it is. And then of course we say, "Duh, adopted."
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, it's never been a problem, but at the same time, I've embraced it, and I think variety is the spice of life. And so for me, it's something that thankfully I haven't had to deal with, but it's something that I want to fight for, to fight against racism and fight for the fact that we all have hearts, we all have red blood, all those things that we have in common so far outweigh just a difference of skin tone and skin color. So, but those are some of the things I've had.
I hear folks say, "I don't see color," and I have to say, I see color.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me not like who I'm seeing, but it helps me understand that there are differences, and they have different backgrounds, and it's something that I can learn from. So I see somebody that I recognize because of their skin tone, that they may be like Latino. I'm gonna ask my boy, "Yo, help me out. I need to understand this."
Right.
Yeah. And that helps me understand that. I got a buddy of mine who's a streamer, Penny. He is Filipino, and I first time I was in his chat, and we were just talking, and he started talking about things from the Philippines, and I was like, "All right, you need to tell me." I was like, "I've got like a handful of Filipino friends." And he's like, "All right, so have you?" And of course, two guys. What are we going to talk about? Food. So
that's where mine was going.
Yeah.
So he starts talking about all these things. So you try this, you try that, you try that. It's like, no. He's like, "Okay, your Filipino friends are slacking.
Yeah, they're failing you.
You should have been over for dinner with all of this already."
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, I had a friend I grew up with in high school and college, and he was Filipino, or he is Filipino, and it was all about the food. He was always eating, like he always had rice and some kind of meat to go with it.
That's
like
what he was
college,
saying. Oh my god,
in the dorm,
that's what he said.
all the time. I was like, "How are you always eating?" And like always eating, always talking, always moving. Like his work ethic and everything else. And I attributed that to his parents and his family and his the way he was raised. His mom was a single mother, and the food thing was definitely. It was a common ground you can grab hold of.
We can't talk about food. I haven't had supper yet.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on then. No, but you do transition us, Lem, into, I don't want to spend the whole time, talking about the negative, talking about, for example, I don't think we really need to talk too much about what's been going on lately. Like we don't have to describe it. We don't have to say, we all have access to social media, and it's everywhere. I really want us to, I think, Lem, you gave a perfect example of transitioning into how can we get through this the right way? How can we make a difference, make an impact? How can we, suffer with those who are suffering, stand up with those that need support, but how can we, spread the love and the positivity and connect with people? Because, some of us are limited. Some of us aren't in a place of quote unquote power where we can, we're not all celebrities. I have 700 followers I think I have 500 followers on Twitter, and I feel like only 10 people see what I'm writing. So, it's like
Same.
part of you's like, why even say anything? But that's not what it's about. It's about connecting with people personally. And it's about making an impact one person at a time. So what do you guys think is, I don't want to say the answer, but what are some ways in which you think we can combat this?
I'm a big proponent of starting conversations and putting myself out there, being honest and open. Somebody can tear me down. That's fine. But they're going to be tearing me down off of things that are me, not things that are rhetoric from, what I see from anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be, if they tear it down or lift it up, it's going to be from where my heart is and what God's put on my heart. like you said today, I put a tweet that says, confession time, I'm conflicted. I want to support the Black Lives Matter movement with all my heart, but not out of hate or anger, out of love. But I get angry at the wrong and proud at the right. I want to choose love, not just for people that look like me, but for all. #help. And I've got people that I know, like I really know, like Marc Boucher, who answered me. People that I kind of know, Shireen from the Married to the Games community, answered me. Somebody from the Gametography community answered me. And then this guy who I don't know, I don't know who he is. I think he's a motivational speaker. he answers. He says stuff. And I think that I've believed that putting yourself out there and truly trying to have a conversation, you're going to get people that tear you down for it. And I specifically mean you two for sure.
Yeah.
Are going to get, like, if you start asking questions and trying to learn by trying to have a personal relationship, not just anybody can read texts and Wikipedia and all this stuff, but trying to have a personal conversation to understand through the eyes of someone that wants to speak to you, not to everybody, to Patrick, to Lucas. I think that's super important, because without that actual face, without that actual conversation between two humans, not a human reading something, I don't think it's not gonna happen. I have a buddy of mine from Scotland that put it out there. He's like, hey, I didn't grow up with any of your U.S. history or any history on slavery or any of that. It's not part of what we're taught here.
Right.
Because someone helped me understand. And someone wrote back, and meaning well. They said, I get where you're coming from. I know, I see where your heart is, but it's not on the shoulders of the oppressed to educate the oppressor. And to me, that was like, okay, this guy openly says, I don't know. I don't get it. Help me. And you smack his hand away and say, go figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
That to me makes little to no sense. So I personally think that having that conversation, actually engaging without an agenda other than understanding where the person is coming from, is super important.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you 100%, Lem. You know, I have an example, and it's kind of taking a step to the right, but it's a very real example in my life right now because I'm inundated every day with messages through an application called WhatsApp. I don't know if you guys have used that very much, but in Latin America, it is the social media application. Like
everywhere else in the world other than the U.S., actually.
Exactly. And yeah, it's really frustrating when I talk to Americans. I'm like, hey, do you want to use this? You ever use this WhatsApp? And they're like, no, not really. I'm like, oh, then I don't know how much we're going to get to really chat, because it's like a texting / I don't know. It's really just texting. It's like iMessage. Yeah. It's like texting, but Brazilians have taken it to another level to where people will send, they will make groups, and in these groups you will then, send out information. People will use it as like a business way to keep connected with business. They won't use email, but instead they'll use WhatsApp. But there's some groups that, like, some business groups are like, oh, we don't do email, we just do WhatsApp. And that's all they do. Wow. But you get like yourself to the point where you're in like 15, 20 groups and they're sharing stuff all the time. And I kid you not, there are days where I will get 50 messages and they're all happy birthday to someone. It's like they're just wishing someone a happy birthday.
Sounds
and
like
that just
Discord.
Yeah, and it fills up, and it's like Discord on crack or speed, or you put the drug in place. It's one of those. I don't do drugs, so I don't really know how that works. But you get inundated with so much information that it becomes white noise, and so I just ignore it, and I'm like, okay, delete, clear because it takes up megabytes and kilobytes and all this stuff on my phone. But when my birthday comes and people give me a bunch of those mass birthday wishes, it's like, okay, thanks. But when someone writes me a message, when someone connects with me personally, goes out of their way to talk with me, that makes all the difference. And I know that a lot of people think I gotta throw out the most information I can to the most people possible so that I can totally let my voice be heard. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Jesus didn't just speak a Sermon on the Mount every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He spoke a Sermon on the Mount maybe once a week, maybe once a month. In between that, he was having dinner with people. He was talking to people while walking down the road. We have to put our effort into talking to people one-on-one. As much as we feel like that doesn't make a big difference, connect with people. I talked with my best friend in West Virginia today, and we shared our highs and lows over this past week and really just talked about where our heads are with these riots, with these protests, with, how the government's reacting and how they, how there's been on both sides a lot of mistakes. And then on both sides or the many sides that there are, you can see this glint of, no matter how far off they may seem, that they're not evil. They're not trying to destroy the world. They're not trying to destroy people because of their color, but they're not self-aware. I don't know if they just don't get it, but we have to talk about it, and we have to do it in a one-on-one personal level to really help people find their voice and understand where they stand so that they can stand. Once people understand how they feel, they're going to be more bold to protest, more bold to donate, more bold to speak out when injustice is present. And so we have to have those one-on-one conversations.
You don't know where your conversation is going to end up. I started playing Disney Infinity because this one guy, so we're going to get into gaming for a second here. I started playing Disney Infinity. I almost was a Skylanders guy, and I started playing Disney Infinity. Well,
yeah.
That's only because this one guy at GameStop said, dude, get Disney Infinity. You'll like it better. All right. So now I get Disney Infinity and I love it. So I want to find out more. I find a podcast and a live that they do on YouTube that talks about all this stuff. Great. I'm start watching that. I get to know the hosts of that. Now I'm involved with this group of people that love Disney Infinity. I start doing stuff on, putting posts out for them. More people are seeing that I'm the one doing it. I get to know those people, and so on and so forth. It all started with one person talking to me, and saying, "Hey, this is a thing that I think you'd enjoy." So, by having that conversation with that one person, you might be like, I'll never, ever get a chance to speak to somebody in politics face to face, somebody that can actually write and be an influence on laws on that. Well, maybe you'll be talking to his second cousin who runs a garage. And then all of a sudden, all of that information gets to him.
Yeah.
So, just saying.
Well, from my perspective, what we need to do is what we're doing right now, is having the conversation, having the one-on-one, listening to the perspectives of the people that are it's hitting them the most, and it's listening. A lot of what I do in my job is listening. I used to have 16 people that were under me, and I had to listen to them. If they have an issue, and I can't just say, okay, that's not important, get out of my office. It's if you're coming to my office, you need something, I got to listen to you. And using those active listening skills. Not everyone has those active listening skills.
Right.
Some people are just like at the surface. They pick out a few words from the conversation, and that's what they hang on to. You know, active listening is you're kind of reading between the lines. You're reading what's the underlying problem here, and that's when you get deeper and deeper into things. You're like, oh, okay, you know, like you need to ask questions, not just listen, but respond and say, hey, if I'm understanding correctly, this is what I'm hearing, and if it's not right, let me know. And if I'm not hearing you correctly, let me know. But you have to have those active listenings. It's not a one-way street; it's a two-way street. And I wanted to like the riots. Like I you know, like
Ugh.
what about those is I understand what they're trying to do for the most part. But I don't condone it by any stretch of the imagination. I understand why they're doing it, because they want to be heard. You're not listening to me.
Frustrated.
I'm going to what I know is if I resort to violence, you're going to listen to me and I'm going to be heard, or you're going to pay attention to me. I understand. That's the way their mentality is. You know, like you haven't been listening for so long. I'm going to do something so outlandish that you pay attention to me, and we're paying attention. You know, not there's the peaceful protests that we're paying attention to. The media doesn't care about those things, though. The media wants to.
Yeah, the media is not showing any of that.
Yeah,
No.
like it's like, hey, here's all the bad things that are happening. What about the good things? What about these good things that are happening? What about these one-on-ones with cops and bystanders and these protesters? You know, like those are the kinds of things, like when you're talking about going through like a rabbit hole on YouTube and you look at things that just like really hit you to your core, like people coming home from the military and they're like those kinds of videos.
Yes.
That is how these videos are hitting me, you know, like of just goodness in people. People are inherently good. But then you got the other people that are like, hey, you're not listening to me. I'm going to do this. And, it was Martin Luther King said, you know, the rioters, the riots are the voice of the unheard. And that's why he's like, this is happening because you're not listening to them. And if you don't listen to them, these are going to continue to happen. I don't know the exact quote it was.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you've got those three. You got three factions, really. You've got protesters, rioters, and looters, and unfortunately, they're all within a 3-foot radius of each other.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the looters and the rioters are going to get more of the camera time.
Yeah.
But it has been encouraging as, you know, more and more people have posted. I have been seeing more peaceful protesting going on all over the world, and that's been very encouraging. And I hope people keep consistent. I know today, I think there was supposed to be a large group of Brazilians and Americans that were going to go to the American consulate here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and to peacefully protest. And I haven't heard yet how it went or what happened, but I truly believe that for the most part, it was a positive thing that happened. It didn't turn in a bad way or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and in the same way, the police officers, you have the police officers that are sympathetic to it, police officers that are there to do their job, and the police officers that are there to abuse their power.
Yeah.
You know? And unfortunately, they're all within a 3-foot radius of each other.
Yep.
So now the police officers are catching a lot of flack as well. I don't condone violence on people that are peaceful, people that aren't doing anything at all. I've got a friend of mine who's a high-ranking officer in our area, and I worry about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I mean, like, he's a freaking goofball. Like, I look at him, I don't see Officer XYZ.
You're like, how are you a police officer?
Yeah, I see my buddy Eric, and I'm like,
what? A clown officer?
What? We do a guys' weekend. It's me, him, my bestie Eric, and his Eric's the other Eric, bestie Sean, and my buddy Eric and Sean are always like, let's go down this trail, and me and the cop are like, nope, because I'm the first one to go, and he's the one that's going to shoot somebody, so we are going to stay up here. So yeah,
you'll have that. Patrick, you mentioned about the inherent good in people. I really like the quote from, I think it's from Harry Potter, when Sirius Black is talking to Harry, and he's talking about how, every human being has good and evil within them. And we have to decide what we're going to act upon. And, I think all of us as followers of Christ know that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. No one is good in and of themselves, but we are all made in the image of God. And so we have this thing where you have this struggle, and it's this struggle we're going to have as human beings until the day we die, where we're going to wrestle between the darkness within and the light within, because we can't be perfect on our own. And we have people out there who are leading with their emotions, they're leading with their frustrations, and they're acting out in ways that, we might not agree with, but they need to be heard. And, and I hurt for them. And, of course I'm angry, and I see the people who, are losing their businesses, and are, buildings that are burning down, people that are getting hurt. But I also see people who have had to deal with racism for years upon years upon years, upon generations. And we've got to stop, ignoring that, in the sense of, I feel like both sides try to focus on the other's negative reactions. Like, see how violent they are, see how they're doing this and they're doing that, so I have a right to be that way. And we're not going to get anywhere if we keep feeding that dog of hate. That's another example. I don't know if you guys have heard this before. Everybody has two dogs in their mind. They have I don't want to call it a love dog and a hate dog, but the question is, which one are you feeding? Which one are you letting have reign in your life? Because the only way to make the dog of love, for example, grow is you got to feed it. And you gotta, every one of us have had a pet at some point. You got to take care of it, and you just leave it to let nature take its course. And the hate dog's going to eat the love dog every time. The love dog wants to go up and, cuddle with you and hang out, snuggle. And that's something that, that often is misunderstood when we say, we should love each other. People are like, oh, forget this kumbaya stuff or hugs and kisses. No, love is saying, no, I value you. I value you above myself. That's exactly what we need. But,
yeah, like, and I, like I am early on my journey with Christ, and there are verses in the Bible that really stick out to me, and one of them is in Romans. I can't remember the exact verse or whatever, or chapter. It is, like, don't fight evil with evil. Fight evil with good.
That's Romans 12, my friend.
Yeah,
17.
Okay.
Yeah,
actually, it's a good one.
Since you bring it up, can I go ahead and read a couple of the verses, because it's really powerful.
Okay, sure.
And then you can continue. But I really want to. I had intended.
No,
to read it anyways.
Based on what you were saying with that, that's pretty much all I wanted to say was, like, you have to respond with good. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Romans 12:17 says, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. And then verse 20 and 21 I really love. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the symbolism in that, Paul, and you think about this, you bring up this verse, Patrick, and Paul is a part of the Jewish nation that they faced, and they faced after Paul so many years of persecution, not just for religion, for race, for being a Jew. Jews were slaves back in the day, and they faced discrimination. And I mean, we all know World War II and the Holocaust and the suffering that the Jewish people and all minorities faced during that time in Germany and in Europe during that time. I mean, and yet in knowing the history of racism and discrimination that Paul and their people went through, he still says, do not repay evil for evil. Overcome evil with good, with love. And, I tell my kids all the time when they're fighting and they do this war of escalation, one yells, the other yells louder, then the other hits, and they just go back and forth. And Mindy and I all the time are like, who is going to break the cycle? Because hate will just bring on more hate. And it just was going to go round and round. It's never going to stop until one of you decides to listen to the other and to love the other. And that doesn't mean hug each other, kiss each other, or say, hey, it's okay, don't worry about what you did. No, you hold people accountable in love. But you also listen to them because, like you talked about, Patrick, inherently, people might not be perfect, but they do want to do good, whether it's for themselves or for someone else. Like, we can't just say that people are evil because they do evil things. People are people, and they love and they live and they want what's best for their family, and we have to listen to that. And people need to feel like they've been understood before they can understand sometimes.
All right, well said.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Get off my soapbox there.
That's all right. I was just you say it, and I was just like, man, I was just reading about Paul and talking about Paul, and dude had some stuff, man.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Paul was like, yo, I don't like Christians. Let's kill them. Yeah. And then, he had a literal come to Jesus moment.
Yep. We're talking about. Actually, Jesus came to him. It was like, hey,
man. See, here's the thing. You want to go to Jesus. You don't want Jesus to come find you.
No, it's scary. You go blind.
Yeah,
you can't see for like 3 days.
Find you. Just go. And then he was like, all right, well, I'll go talk to my people. I'll go talk to the Jews. And God was like, hey, about that, you're gonna go talk to some people you don't like.
Well, did you guys have any other things to add? Anything you wanted to share? Any last thoughts of any kind? Throw it out there.
Yeah, I've been saying it all along. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep on saying it. It's a matter of the heart. And as much as we want hearts to change, folks are going to have to change. And that doesn't mean we don't stop. That doesn't mean we stop showing them what love looks like and what it looks like to love your neighbor. Right? Maybe it starts with you just smiling at somebody. Maybe it's a matter of, I don't know. You bought a cookie, and you buy a second cookie and you hand it to the next person in line.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm loving my neighbor. You might not be able to eat this cookie. Maybe you have a gluten issue. Hey, pass it along to somebody else. Show somebody some love. I mean, maybe you don't razz somebody for being Symmetra in Overwatch.
Gotta throw that in there. Nerd.
A little jab.
But I mean, you just what's the one thing you're gonna do? Every time you wake up, what's the one thing you're going to do? Not what can I do? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Set yourself a goal of doing a thing for somebody. And here's the thing: you want a challenge? Do it for somebody you don't like.
Yeah.
You're supposed to love them. Love them anyway. Show them love. Do it for somebody you don't like. I mean, because there are days I love my kids. There are days I just don't like my kids.
Oh, I hear you on that. During quarantine, there's even more days I don't like my kids during quarantine. Oh man,
So,
I hear you on that for sure.
But I mean, just show who you going to show love to and do it. Just do it.
There you go.
Sorry, Nike.
Preaches some Nike. Whatever money we make from this Nike, we'll send it your way. If anything comes from this.
Okay, no.
Give you royalties.
Scratch that, Patrick. Take that out. Do the thing. That's what we're. That's our slogan. Do the thing.
You're getting the squint from the Patrick squint, where he's like, "Okay, if you say so."
I feel like I got the
Do the thing.
the Godfather thing on. All right.
Do the thing. Yeah. Lem, while you were talking, it actually reminded me of Frozen 2, one of the songs. When you don't know what to do what's right.
Yes.
That song that Aunt Anna sings when she's walking out of the cave after, bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's like we don't know what to do. Do the right thing. You don't know what the next step should be. What's the next right thing that I can do? And
there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And if that's just giving like $10-20 to, a GoFundMe or someone who's, more directly connected to making sure laws are passed or people are represented who are being discriminated against, are victims of racism, give that 10, 15, $20. If, you have friends that you haven't checked up on lately in cities where there's protesting and rioting, call them up. Just reach out and talk to people. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Patrick, did you have any last things you want to share?
Oh, no, I don't.
Nope. Good to go.
Well, I mean, I do, but we'd be here for another 3 hours.
Patrick about
Maybe
to grab
for
his
another
Bible.
time.
All right, brothers, I need you to turn with me to.
All right, if you all read with me, we're going to just read the New Testament.
Starting with Genesis 1:1.
Yeah. Galatians chapter 3, verse 28 says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." And that to me is just a direct, hey, guess what? Racism is wrong. That's not what Jesus is about. That's not what love is about. God is love. And God came in the form of Jesus Christ and came and died for us and was resurrected to show us his power and to show us how much he loved us. And, to me, that is the big difference maker. I know there are people on all sides of every issue making some good, and sometimes it feels like a lot of bad decisions and saying things that it's just like, why are you saying this? But a lot of that just falls down to being a human being and not being perfect. But when we have Christ in common, when we have love in our hearts and in our lives, we've got to let go of that hate and talk about it, confess it, give it up to him, because he makes all the difference. And I know he's the reason for all three of us that we have not lost hope. We've watched a lot of stuff online, but we've seen the positive, and we know that, that hate and racism does not have the final say. He does.
Amen.
And so we're going to continue forward, and we want everyone who can be involved to be involved and to work together. So, all right. Well, that's all for this protest on racism, and we really just wanted to open up lines of communication. We hope that, as joiners, you won't just listen, but you'll talk, you'll reach out to us. All of us are on Twitter. I'm at MTTG Brazil Team. Of course, our podcast is at the GMG Podcast. Connect with us. Lem, why don't you plug your social medias and your Twitters and all that, whatever you want to throw out there to people to get connected with you.
You can find me for my personal stuff. I'm at Bad Gamer Elite, all one word. I'm also the Gametographers or Gametographers. So, and then also God Games Geekery, which is my podcast.
That's right.
That it's a 5-minute devotional deal. I mean, seriously, at top end, it's 5 minutes. Take 3 minutes out of your day. It's a fun, geeky time. Even if Jesus isn't your jam, it's a fun, geeky time.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah, you got to plug that. Definitely check it out. Get a little bit of. It just goes great with a little cup of coffee. I mean, nowadays,
seriously.
I'm drinking so much coffee in the morning. That's like 1 cup of coffee for me, like 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be done before your coffee's done.
Yeah. There you go. Coffee with Lem.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a 10-week Overwatch devotional series.
Nice. Very nice. Definitely have to check
Overwatch
that out.
if you haven't figured it out.
Yeah. I've known that, but yeah, you've definitely shown that again here today.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then Patrick, you are at Nova Beyond, right?
I am. I'm trying to get that Out Hollywood Bones handle, but it's
still not.
Someone
sticking,
still
huh?
has it. They haven't,
Really?
They haven't tweeted since, I don't know, when Twitter was invented, so I don't know what's going on.
Back in the.
I asked Twitter to remove it, but they said no.
They refuse. That's too bad.
They did.
All right.
Yep.
Well, you never know. Just keep checking, man.
Yeah, and all these links and how to get to Lem will be in the show notes too.
Perfect. That is fantastic. Check it out. We are just so we're so blessed, and though these are hard times, we are not without hope, and we have got to stand together. We have got to keep connected, and So, alrighty then, Lem, Patrick, along with you, our beloved friends, families, and joiners, go get your good morning this week. May God bless and guide your lives as you live, as you work, and as you game. God bless.
1, 2, 3, 4.